As someone in their 30s now, they really don't tell you that you'll spend a lot of time reflecting back on your 20s and all the things you should have done, all the things you could have done if you had the knowledge back then. And I always think about all the knowledge that I have right now and what I would do if I could go back in my 20s. So this is 10 things I wish I knew in my 20s. Number 1, don't focus on romance, focus on self. Now this does not mean don't go on the occasional date here and there. It just means do not focus solely on just having a relationship. I think the early 20s, where you really haven't figured yourself out, you're not really ready for a relationship in that way. I think the one relationship you should be thinking about mainly is the relationship with yourself. Focus on becoming a better you, focus on becoming a better person, and that ultimately will attract the right person for you. Because how are you supposed to attract somebody when you clearly don't fully understand yourself yet, and you really haven't built yourself to become this person, which is what the 20s are all about. So that's why I think focusing on yourself and spending a lot of time, even alone, trying to understand yourself, going on long walks, journaling, whatever your thing is, focus on really learning yourself and what your needs are before you think of the needs of another person. Number 2, have a savings account and actually save. Now this is something that I personally struggled with in my 20s, was not only figuring out what to do with the money I was making, but saving it. If I could go back, that would be the one thing I would really pressure myself to do more, is take a certain amount of percentage of everything I was making and have a savings account and be really firm on, living like I don't have that much money, because that's a good way to build your savings account for the future. When you're in your 20s, it's hard to think of the future and the needs of money in the future. That's something that definitely is important that I realize now, and it took me a while to realize that. So definitely open a saving account, actually save money, even if it's a little bit of an amount, and don't touch it. Just leave it in there. Honestly, the future you will thank you for that. Number 3, establish routine, life schedule. This is another thing that I learned recently in my 30s, is how important a routine and life schedule is. What my favorite thing to do is wake up in the morning and go on a walk or do some exercise, and this really gets my day started perfectly. I spend a good 1-2 hours in the gym and walking around, and it really impacts my entire schedule for the rest of the day. I can go home and do some work for the rest of the day, feeling completely focused and great. And I fit this into my 5-day work week. And being a freelance creative, that's a little different. You can set your own hours, but I still like to work 9 to 5. So when I get off at 5, I'll have enough of the day to enjoy spending time with friends or just relaxing at home by myself. And I really learned about having a routine really going to the gym, because the gym is all about those small gains that you're making every day. It's not about all the hard work that you put into one day. It's about all those little steps you take along the way, and ultimately your body changes because of that. And that's the same with your mental. All these little things that you do in your daily routine every day, it builds up and affects your entire life. So how you live your day is how you live your life. Number 4, narrow your passions but try all interests. From someone in the creative industry like me, I always wanted to do so many things. I started off with videography, and then I wanted to do photography, and then I wanted to do art, and then I wanted to do all kinds of art, painting, music, and I didn't just narrow my focus into one thing. And what I noticed about creatives that have really succeeded further in their careers than I have is that they stuck to a niche. They stuck to one solid thing and just mastered that. They still had hobbies on the side, which is okay. Like, I would still be able to do music, art, and painting and all these other things, but it's important to, especially if it's your job, focus on one thing so you can communicate to your audience what exactly you do. That's something more personal with me. Obviously, if you're in a different line of work, that would be different, but I still think it's important to narrow your passions and still be open to trying all interests. I've been more open to trying more interests in my life recently. I fell in love with new hobbies because I gave a lot of hobbies a try. So if you go through life not trying a bunch of different things, there's some things that may surprise you and could end up being a hobby that you really enjoy and you end up doing for the rest of your life. Number 5, make time to relax. Don't burn out. I've met a lot of friends along the way and a lot of freelance people that work for themselves, and a lot of the problems they have is overworking and not making time to relax. Even if you have a different line of work that really takes a lot of hours, it's definitely important to make time to relax and just don't burn out, because ultimately that will lead to a better life. And that goes back to having interests and having hobbies that you can do outside of work to really fulfill you, just so your life is not constantly about work and you end up stressing yourself out to the point that you're just completely jaded early and you don't enjoy going to work or doing anything. Number 6, value relationships with friends and family. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time with my family. I grew up in my grandparents' house and family was all around. And it's something I took for granted because you think that those days are always going to be that way. You don't think that you'll grow up, be an adult one day, travel somewhere else, and not really see friends or family that you grew up with. Years will go by and you'll reconnect, and it won't really be the same because you didn't maintain those friendships or relationships. This is something that I learned in my 30s because I left my home country and went traveling and spent a lot of time away from friends and family that I grew up with. And I lost connection and a lot of those valuable relationships that I gained over time, which I didn't feel were as important as I do now, because friends and family are everything. I do believe that life is about the quality of friendships and relationships that you build along the way. There's so many things you can learn from your friendships and relationships. It teaches you how to be more empathetic. It teaches you how to be an overall great person. It's mentally healthy to have connections and talk with people. And it's not healthy to be super introverted and just not talking to anybody, spending all your time alone. And although this is important, this brings me to number 7, which is travel. When I turned 29, that's when I started traveling. I went to Japan and it completely changed my whole perspective on life. It made me question so many things about societies and the right way to live. And it's amazing meeting people from another side of the world and other people that are traveling with different perspectives. And it's another thing about making friendships and relationships that can broaden your ideas and just make you appreciate life overall. You learn so much from traveling and discovering other cultures, see how other things work around this world. It's definitely a life-changing thing, and I never regret any of the travels I've ever made. That's one thing that you can invest in and you'll never see it as wasted money. So I definitely think in your 20s, start traveling. Number 8, invest in property. I've had a lot of friends that invested in property, and it's honestly one of the best things you can do with your money. Now, we talked about saving money, which is extremely important, but what's more important is knowing what to do with that money so it can grow and you'll have a better future. I think buying a property is something I would have done earlier on and actually focused on getting property and having a solid home base that I didn't have to worry about. I didn't have to continuously have to keep paying rent to somebody for. And ultimately, I think that is an extremely great idea if you're in the 20s, is focus on investing into a property. Number 9, don't take yourself too seriously. It is your 20s, you just got out of your teens, you're trying to have fun in life, it's your first time being an actual adult, so you don't want to overstress yourself with so much work and not have fun at all. It's okay to make mistakes, like I made a bunch of mistakes which I've learned from, but always be conscious of things that you're doing, being a good person, but at the same time, have fun and enjoy life. Because life just isn't about the money you're making and being successful. That happiness does really matter, and not taking yourself too seriously and overstressing yourself. And this brings me to number 10, because although the 20s are there, you still have your 30s. You'll still be young in your 30s, and there's a lot of time left. And luckily, there's a lot of time left to learn, and I'm continuously learning. I'm almost in my mid 30s now, and I learn every day. I'll learn into my 40s, I'll learn into my 50s. Life is about growing and continuously changing, evolving, becoming a better person, and just enjoying the ride. So don't feel overly stressed that you don't have your 20s figured out, but I hope this list does help people at least think about some things, because I wish I had somebody to tell me a bunch of things while I was in my 20s. And I wish I could talk to my past self and be like, hey man, maybe you should do this or that. But eventually you will reach your 30s and you still have enough time to get things together. So hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and subscribe.